Aloha, my name is Espie Chapman. This is Feast, Food Experiences for Agriculture Science Training. My presentation is called Everything Grows. This is lesson 2 that I delivered that I want to share with you. For Feast lesson 2, I chose 8.1, Noticing Waste, in the Feast book. This document is a reflection of teacher delivery for 8.1, Noticing Waste. This document serves as evidence of teacher backwards design and commitment to high-level student engagement. This document is evidence of participation and delivery of engaging lessons which students are pushed out of their comfort levels. Not many people think about the waste they produce and try to rectify their irresponsible actions. So this lesson was made for students to think about the waste they create. These sets of photos is a true representation of what is thrown away at an elementary school. On the top left, you've got almost a full burger and almost a full apple. On the top right, more food. On the bottom right, it's almost a full burger with carrots and beans. And on the bottom left, pretty much the same thing. Elementary school kids do not eat all their food for their little bellies. They're just served entirely too much. This document displays the steps in which teacher carefully created thought-provoking lessons to engage students in noticing their waste. Using the lunch menu is something students look at daily, but do not take the time to think about the waste that is being produced. This lesson is delivered during the 5th and 6th week of school when students are just getting comfortable. Having students collect data on daily food waste is a way for students to recognize the waste that is created at both school and home. One of the first things I asked students to do was use the lunch menu as a resource to predict their data. On the back of their sheet, students were to analyze which food items would be most likely to be thrown away and take a tally of meals with rice, meals without rice, meals with meat and non-meat days, pizza days, fish days. Using the Feast worksheet on 8.1, I created a worksheet for students to write their answers down, and in box 1, they are using the September lunch menu to write 3 complete sentences to predict how much and what kind of food is thrown away at lunchtime. So in an effort to collect data and make predictions using patterns, students were to fill out this worksheet. Box number 2 says, using the September lunch menu, write 3 complete sentences of what do you think will be the most significant amount of kitchen waste. In this one I added food cuttings and packaging because lots of students had questions about what do you mean by this? So I explained to them that also look at the lunch menu and predict what kind of packaging might be wasted or just thrown away. And lastly, I added, for September, what do you think will have the most food waste for lunch? September 7th, September 14th, September 21, or September 28th. And I asked them to explain their reasoning. This is the back of their data sheet where they took count of hot dogs, chickens, pizzas, hamburgers, and did their tallies for most waste for those days. I specifically chose September 7th, 14th, 21, and 28th Wednesdays because that is the day that all 7th and 8th graders have lunch together as one period. Both my classes are a mix of 7, 8, and so I knew that going forward when I wanted to do part 3 of this investigation, I wanted for them to do group work and do a lunch audit, meaning that both 7th and 8th grade students would be there to do the audit, so they needed to be available, and Wednesday is the only day that they are both there for the lunch. Next, I wanted students to think about how far their food was coming from and all the energy it took to create their meal of salad and steak with mushrooms. For each meal, like the salad, the students were to find where the lettuce originated, the tomatoes, the olives, and the cucumbers, and then they were to use Google Maps to find how many miles it took from that origin to Hawaii. Then they were to tally and add all those miles for the total food miles for this meal. And same with the second meal with the steak, potato, asparagus, mushrooms. Add all those miles using Google to map it out to your front door, and then to add all those miles to get the food miles for this meal. I wanted students to recognize that there was so much energy created to make one meal, and if they could figure out how to grow this in their backyard, it would save so much energy as well as money and have so much gratification. I always feel at the middle level that parents are shut out with kids in their learning at school, and so I like to always send the lessons home to include families in. This is a data chart for how much food they throw away in a day. So for whatever food goes in the wastebasket, whether it be fruit, vegetables, pasta, rice, fish, beef, chicken, they're supposed to make a tally for that day. And then at the end of the week, have a tally for the week for each item. This sheet goes on the refrigerator, and it's to be used for 1 week. Not only am I asking the students to open their eyes and senses to the waste that's being created, I also like to ask for the families to do that, so it becomes a team effort for this one homework. Again, this is Lesson 2, student work number 1. Lesson 2, student work number 2. And lastly, Lesson 2, student work number 3. I teach 3 periods of Intro into Agriculture and 2 periods of Farm to Fork. So I have all the students do that to recognize their waste. Kailua Intermediate School is fortunate to be part of a 5 hui program with the Windward Zero Waste Hui. We are the secondary school receiving 9 public schools. There are 5 zero waste schools, which are Ka'ohao, Ka'elapulu, Kainalu, Kailua Intermediate, and Enchanted Lake Elementary. So at every school there is a data board at the very back of the cafeteria. As an extension to this lesson, I started to take my kids to the data board so that they can also analyze the data there. Each different color pile is a different pile of hot compost. I think right now we have 21 or 24 piles going all at the same time. Each capture is about 100 pounds of food from the lunch program. I wanted to show this data to the students so that they can put it along their predictions that they had made in class using the September menu. While the students are here, we talk about what kind of food might have been served on that day. We talk about the temperature, the FBIs, and the process of hot composting. This is a photo of my 3rd period investigating the data chart. You can see here they are very focused on numbers and colors. And it's really interesting that students really want to know. They really want to know these numbers and how it affects the lunch. And why is it that we only put this much in? After this station, I take the kids to the hot compost pile, and if we're lucky, our resource recovery specialist people are there hot composting the lunch from before. We do a short Q&A with them, and it seems like when it's all together, the students get this aha moment of why it's important to capture our waste, why it's important to compost, why it's important, especially when we live on an island. This last slide shows the potential waste diversion, and at the bottom it shows you the setup for the lunch catch to provide a zero waste lunch at your school. One takeaway from this presentation should be not dirt made my lunch, but rather it was lunch that made my dirt. The zero waste philosophy is active participation in resource recovery. And if these 5 schools didn't practice zero waste, they would be spending thousands and thousands of dollars purchasing soil and vermicast for their ag and garden programs. This is a time to connect with place and providing students the opportunity to reclaim Hawaii for their learning. When you live in Hawaii, in an island, it is culturally responsible to reclaim what would be waste and to malama the aina. And when you malama the aina, you actually take care of yourself and your families and communities by ensuring a healthy climate and helping to make good soil for new foods to be grown. Mahalo for your time, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. Everything grows.